Hello, I am Dr. Lal. I work with the University of Kerala, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to make this video for the online project of the Gurudev Institute of Management Studies, Thonnakal. Uh, I would share with you another video for which I did generally on teaching of English, on learning English, which I would recommend you to watch first, and then we'll come to this particular video. The former video I made for general students out of interest, and I think that will be useful for you also, management students. Uh, well, I remember a few years ago I came and met some of your seniors in your college and talked to them, and I found that you have many issues related to speaking English with confidence, and I'm sure much has been done by the college the last few years to rectify that, but still maybe there are a few things that you can add to your existing efforts. Um, One aspect that we repeatedly are concerned about is the pronunciation of English. In my general video I refer to, which you can watch, I have talked about the ways in which English can be learned, the different skills can be acquired. In this particular video, I am focusing particularly for you management students, the hurdles you might face in acquiring the pronunciation of English. Um, English, we have begun to learn English after we learned mother tongue. In most cases, we began learning English after completing the learning of our mother tongue, which is most often Malayalam. Maybe a couple of you are from other states, then your mother tongue may be different. Whatever it may be, you began to learn English after you learned your mother tongue, and that is one little problem, which is not your fault, which is a universal thing. When we think of learning a new language, this always happens. But with English, one difficulty we often have is English is not pronounced as it is written. We have problems related to spelling, which do not correspond to the pronunciation all the time. Most of the time, in fact. So when you learn a new word, you need to learn the pronunciation, the spelling, and the meaning at the same time. While in an Indian language, when you come across a new word, you just need to hear it well, and then you'll be able to write it. And then the only thing you will need is to find out the pronunciation of the word. In English, that is not the case. You have to learn the pronunciation separately. This is because English has an inherent issue of having a limited number of letters to represent in its alphabet, but it has a much more number of sounds to represent. The problem with inadequate number of letters of the alphabet to represent the sounds of English. So we say that English has about 44 sounds, while we have only 26 letters to represent them. Particularly in terms of vowels, we tend to say that English has only 5 vowels. If you ask any student in India, they would say that English has only 5 vowels, and if you ask them which they are, they would say A, E, I, O, U. But the fact is, English has about 20 vowel sounds. No language can function with just 5 vowel sounds. So the fact is, in English we have only 5 letters to represent the 12 simple vowels, and then 8 vowel combinations, which we call diphthongs. So to cover all these 20 vowels, we have only 5 letters. That is why we have a problem with English vowels. We believe there are only 5 vowels, and then there are so many other vowels. So the problem is we need to know that there are more vowel sounds in English, because only then we'll be able to pronounce most vowels properly. For example, in the word BAT, the pronunciation is bat, which it has a vowel sound a, which is not there in many Indian languages. So unless you know it is an a sound, then you may not be able to pronounce it well. In the same time, in the word girl and in the world, you have an sound, which is not there again in most Indian languages. So you would instead say a girl or a world, which wouldn't be English. And then again, you might ask, is it not enough that we pronounce English in our own way? It is perfectly fine. So long as you talk only to people within India, it is fine. But as management students, you will certainly have to talk to people talking other languages within India. People, English is a lingua franca, and you'll have to talk to people from other parts of other states of India who may have a different pronunciation. It's important in that sense to know a kind of standard or a kind of a neutral kind of pronunciation, so that you can communicate well with people within India. And that's not enough. You these days you will certainly have the necessity to go outside India sometimes, or be in India and communicate with people from abroad. Not only English native speakers, but also people from other countries like Japan or Germany or Australia or any other countries where they speak. I leave out Australia. Countries like Japan, Germany, or China, or France, where English is not the mother tongue, but English is used for communication. So you have that need. So the need is very there, very much there. Yeah. And unfortunately, we have not focused much on the pronunciation aspect in English in our school system. Actually, while we studied the English letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, we should also have learned the pronunciation of all the sounds in English. And first of all, we should have learned all the 44 sounds in English, and then also to pronounce them well. If you had done it in school, in the school level, it would have been much easier. But it is not too late. You can do it. You can do it. What you need to know is you need to get hold of a good dictionary. An Oxford Learners Dictionary, or Cambridge Learners Dictionary, or English Pronouncing Dictionary, and look at the sounds of English. Or you can go to a Google, you attempt a Google search and find out English, the sounds of English as spoken in England. First, let us master or rather become familiar with the sounds of English spoken in England. Because in America they have some sounds are different. So let's not think about American speech right now. Think about the British pronunciation. The one way is to go to a website, which if you go, BBC has good websites, British Council has good websites, where they teach you the English sound system. You need to study that. It's like learning a new language. I know. You have to study that. You might be curious to know that there are many sounds in English which we thought which we didn't know there was. For example, the word pleasure is pronounced as pleasure and not pressure, and vision is vision and not vision, and wine is wine, and all these things are there, and vine is vine. So you need to know all these differences, and there are so many other subtle differences as well. All these need to be looked at very carefully. Only then will we be able to become very comfortable in the English pronunciation. I'm not saying that you will begin to speak like an Englishman. That is never going to happen. That's not a necessity either, because an Englishman has, just like an Englishman can never speak Malayalam like we do. It's just like that. It's not a question of they being greater and we being not so good. It's never like that. It's only a matter of different language being mastered. So I would say you get hold of a dictionary or go to a website and look at the 44 sounds. And these 44 sounds can be studied by listening to them. We can also look at the International Phonetic Alphabet, which gives a separate symbol for all the 44 sounds. And becoming familiar with the symbols will help you look up these words in the dictionary. It'll enhance your ability to learn pronunciation. I think personally, as an English teacher and as a teacher who has worked with students from different strata, different disciplines like management or medicine or engineering, everywhere you have this problem of the lack of familiarity with English sounds hindering your prospects a bit. not a bit, quite a lot. So I strongly recommend you to do that. And secondly, please remember, it is once you have mastered the pronunciation, you also have a problem with stress. In Indian languages, we have a way of stressing all the syllables in a word in the same way, whereas in English, you tend to stress one syllable in a word a little more. Like you would say, I walked home alone. So in alone is not alone, it's alone. And extraordinary. So you don't say extraordinary, but you say extraordinary. And you don't say introduction, but you would say introduction. A long time ago. So you see, there are points where you have an extra emphasis. This is another feature of English. You don't give importance to all the syllables in a word. And even when we speak a sentence, we tend to give extra emphasis to some particular words. For example, I would say, I went home and had my food. That would be artificial. The English way of saying it would be, I went home and had my food. See, at some points I gave an extra emphasis. This is called sentence stress, and word stress would be like introduction or education, all that. So this is another point you need to keep in mind when you look at the pronunciation of English. I could venture up on teaching you this sound system, but it's much easier if you can look up a dictionary. Every dictionary will have a little section introducing this to you. And you are students who have mastered the nuances of marketing and so many advanced things you already have learned. And this is not a difficult task for you. What you need to know is that it is there. And once you are aware of the need to learn the phonetic symbols of English, become familiar with the speech sounds. Today you have YouTube and so many websites which offer you a lot of information on this. You can actually listen to these things. So all the best to you. I'll be with you again with other videos on different topics related to English language teaching. Thank you very much.